Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast, our Supercoach side of the podcast once more tonight. And it's the time's come. It is better than Christmas in a way, but it's also a massive tease, if you ask me. It is actually like you've almost got blue balls in a way. The fact that it's only the four teams, it's the two games on Sunday. So I don't know. It's the hooker talk. Obviously, it gets us every time, but I think it might get us
Mm.
even more this time. And we're carrying the case of the blue balls when we can't get our full lineup settled. We were talking about it off air. It actually is a bit of a head fuck, if I'm being honest, when it comes to Supercoach this week, because you have to make fair few moves to make some of these players work in your team that are playing this weekend, which has a massive downflow effect into next weekend, because you could be playing some cheapies who you think, yeah, they've got their spot next week. Team list comes out next week and they're not there. You're thinking, I have literally screwed myself here. But that's the joy of Supercoach at the moment. This Vegas round is exciting, but goodness me, when you peel back the curtain for Supercoaches, I actually think it's more of a pain in the ass than anything.
Yep.
Jesse, I'll bring you in. First of all, guys, we're going to do this in sort of two stages tonight. First of all, we're going to do our team reveal, but only for the players that are actually playing this weekend. So it's pretty much, I think, a handful of players for both of our teams. We'll just quickly go through why we've picked them, etc. And then we'll go into the actual team lists and now sort of players who we think should be maybe higher owned or lesser owned on the percentage market. So, Jesse, how's things, mate? It's been a big
Yeah,
day.
it has. Yeah, no, the team list come through, and naturally, you just start changing your team to start getting around it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've just been trying to work it out, man. At the moment, it's a bit tricky to be fair because there's a few players that I want that are playing at Vegas, but they kind of suck up my whole budget. So, you're half committing by then already. Once these guys are named and they're started, um, you sort of your hands are tied as far as changing your team around goes. So you really need to lock it in. And I'm kind of a bit on the fence about locking my team in this early, not seeing other team list stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit tricky. So we'll see the teams that have come up, and I can already tell you that I've changed it. So, um, but yeah, no, really good talking points to get into. But there was a few different people in the lineups that I was expecting to come through when the team list dropped today. It was a bit
Yeah,
unexpected actually.
there
So
was.
yeah,
There
mainly around
definitely
the
was.
Broncos,
And
I'd say, and the Roosters, obviously.
yes,
So yeah, a few
yeah.
a few changes going on. The other two are pretty straightforward, but yeah, the Rapids game, as much as it is, it's pretty much half expected, and same as the Manly team. So yeah, it was just that one game that's looks pretty out of control there. But yeah,
It does, and can't wait. I actually reckon that will be an absolute blockbuster as well. Well, that second game, that Roosters versus Broncos game, I actually can't wait for it. Um, you sort of hinted towards it there, and I've changed it a lot so far today, and I'll let everyone know now that what we will do, like obviously we're going to release our team tonight, and all the listeners or all the watchers on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe, guys, to the page. Um, you will obviously see what we've got now, but as Jesse said, because there is still a few days away, you never know what will happen in the Supercoach world and how we are already. We've changed a lot of things around. I'll probably put a post back out for just our team and who have got probably on Saturday or something, so you can see an actual final sort of how the team's sort of looking in a way, and just go from that. So before we get too much more into it, let's open it up straight away. And I actually think I've stuffed up the order, so it's actually Jesse, the top dog, releasing his team first. Um, Really exciting stuff here because I've blurred out everyone else. I've left it really in suspense.
yeah,
Jesse, run through who you can so far. You've already said there is some changes.
yeah. So I'll get to the changes, but I'll start from the first side. Like Brandon Smith, it was mainly around the budget side of things. To be fair, I keep going back to him. If I need to find a few more 100K potentially to what I've had. I've had Harry Grant in one of the sides before, and I really liked it. I just found it was a bit too thin elsewhere. I'm still not getting aboard the Appy train. I just don't think it's a long ride, that one. I think it's going to backfire, and I just don't like the round one buy is so. But
Yeah.
I don't know, all of this upside for him. Like he's in the worst team in the league, man. If they bring an 18th team out, they'll finish 18th. So not
It's
a lot of
funny, all those
attacking upside.
Appy all those
Yeah,
Appy lovers went very quiet after the weekend. I didn't hear a single thing out of him.
yeah,
So that's
exactly.
what you're
That's
going to
what
get from Appy each week as well. So
Yeah, that's what to expect. You might get a blinder one week and he'll score 90 points, and then the next one will come out and score 25. So, um, and that's not even with bench hookers too. So you just gotta, you know, you're going pretty risky on that side. But yeah, obviously Brandon Smith comes with his own risk. It's not to say that he's any better than Coruscant. The upside's probably
yeah,
not there for him, but for 470, I just can't see it being much of a hit. I think for now, it's one of those positions that I'll probably just look to work on if I can solidify at least a good spine out of it. So that's the reasoning for him. Totola, mainstay in this team. I've actually been thinking about some other front rowers too, and if I do want to change a front rower, it's essentially going to be Totola that makes the move. And
Ooh.
I've been such a big advocate for him that I just don't feel like I can do it. I feel like I'd just be doing myself an injustice changing him out. So I'm not going to
You'd
do
hate
that.
if you ended up rocking up like an 80 pointers all after you trade him out or something.
Oh, of
It'd
course,
kill
that's what's
you
going to happen.
after
Yeah,
riding him for so long. You've ridden him the
exactly.
whole off season.
Yeah, from pretty much as soon as the app started, I was like, "Yep, Totola's my man," and
Yeah.
hasn't changed. Hasn't come out of the team once, so I don't think he will.
He's your hammer. He's your
Yeah,
hammer. You've got
yeah,
to keep him.
he's my guy. Um, I saw Xavier Willison got the spot over Marty Tapau. That looks like it was going to be up for one or the other. So I don't really expect a great deal out of him, to be honest with you, at 265. I don't know if there's any upside there. I suppose it's just going to be about a minutes thing. But if it's not him, it could be Liam Henry or I don't know. I don't know at the moment. It's a weird spot because he's too cheap. Um, to swap for any of those, like, like Lenu got named for however long that runs for. He's another 70K on top. Like, I just can't afford it.
Mm.
I could probably go down a bit, but then again, there's nothing. So at least he's on the bench. It could just be something to chip away. I've still got my other bench player that I'm pretty hot on underneath him, but hopefully, he's not going to change. But we'll see who that is. I'm sure everyone will probably work it out. Um, Tupanua and Piakura, I actually brought back into the team after I saw the team list. They are people that I'm pretty well we've both been talking about. Piakura scored that double in the trials, and it made me sort of my ears sort of popped up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this guy actually might be good for some value at 426." So I put him back in because he was named. That knee injury obviously didn't seem like anything. And Tupanua, yeah, he impressed me enough over the trials too that I think he might actually keep that spot, but if he doesn't keep the spot, he'll just rotate, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere else, and I don't mind his price for where it's at. So he could be someone cheaper if I needed to get a bit more coin. But again, like we're kind of locked in. If I leave him in there, I don't have the luxury of swapping that person out. So, but at the moment, I don't mind it, to be honest with you, man. I'm pretty sure I might keep him in there because I do like Tupanua. I think he's got a lot of upside there. Um,
Yeah.
and then I got the twin turbos down the back,
Ooh,
twin
look
turbos.
out.
Ben Trbojevic named in the second row. Um,
Massive.
Hopefully, yeah, it is. It's a big one. Hopefully, like that injury Schuster's got, the calf thing, I think it is at the moment, that really pestered him for a long time last year. So there's a chance it does the same this year because they're saying it could be a short-lived little experience on the second row there, but you never know with Schuster. Like he could just be out another week,
Mhm.
another week, another week, and all of a sudden you've managed to string 8 weeks out of Ben Turbo, and hopefully if he can stay fit the amount of time as well, because he comes with his own injury problems. It could be good value there. I just don't see how it's bad, especially when you plug it in the center wing.
Yeah,
And I've got
very.
Tommy Turbo as well. Like I've been trying everything I can to get Tom Turbo into this team
Yeah.
because I'll pull the curtain back on my other fullback. It's Ponga. I think everyone's pretty well aware of
Oh,
that.
hang
Oh,
on.
shocker! Oh my god, can you believe it? That's big money. That's big money in my fullbacks, which I'm fine with. But it kind of just takes away, potentially 200 or 300K elsewhere. So,
You
um,
do have the sombrero, so
yeah, I do. So it's a bit tricky, man. Like at the moment, I've taken him out and I've strengthened some other stuff, but I suppose when it comes around to it, and I just see Tom Turbo go nuts in this round one, I'm gonna kick myself if he's not in my team. So
mm,
he's the best, man. He's the best, and I like. It looks like he's on too. It looks like he's fit. His speed's there, and from all the other stuff, even the stuff that you were putting out too. Um, why would you not have him if you had the choice now to put him in there? So
If you can afford him, you get him. It's just at the moment, I think a lot of people are struggling
Yeah,
financially, not just in
yeah,
real life, but
cost of
also
living.
at a Supercoach point of view as well. It seems like it's just 24/7. We're just constantly struggling with our finances. So
Yeah,
it's great that Supercoach has jumped on board with real life situations, and we
yeah.
now can just live it 24/7. How good! But
Mm.
I love what you said
Inflation hit
about
hard.
Supernova. I think his price is so juicy for what he is capable of. I keep saying it. Everyone forgets just how good this guy was just 2 years ago. Like he was arguably the top probably 3 second rows in the competition at the time. He's tremendous at running holes. He's so hard to tackle, especially when he's running at those halfbacks or 5/8s.
Yeah.
He's always got those tackle busts in him. Like I love that. The question for you, I guess, they've named two, and it's sort of actually it's probably more of a discussion we'll have when we go to the team list. So I will save it for that side of things. Um, Burbo, big old Benny Trebojevic. I actually have this sneaky feeling he's actually more concreted for that edge spot than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
I actually don't. I think, like, from all reports, he has literally trained the house down this preseason, and he's looking remarkably fit. He looks really on. The coaching staff love him. He's obviously a Trebojevic, so Manly love him. From like with the way Schuster's going and how he has been over the last year or so, like there's when all that talk first came out about him moving to the back row, I never thought he was going to be like definite selection there. Like if anything, I see Schuster coming on off the bench and maybe having like a 25-minute role these days. Like that's sort of the role I can see him maybe doing at the moment. So I think Benny's got that for a while, at
Mm.
least a few weeks, to start generating some cash. And I think it's juicy cash.
Yeah. That's it too. Like, obviously, they're paying Schuster through the arse, man. He's on so much
Mm.
money, so they almost feel obliged to play him. But Ben Turbo did everything right. Especially he played every trial. He looks good. He hasn't obviously hurt himself yet, so fingers crossed he doesn't. But um, he's going to have that position for long enough to sort of stake it as his own too. Like, there's no reason that Schuster comes back from his injury and all of a sudden, Ben Turbo's got to sit out because this guy just walks his way back into it. I think Schuster's going to have to work for that spot, and he hasn't had an opportunity to yet. So it could be a long time before he gets his foot in there. Hopefully, anyway, it would be good.
I agree. Anything else you want to say about your team while we've got it up?
No,
Apart from the fact you'll probably make 20 million more changes by Sunday morning.
yeah, there probably will be that. But I think when you sort of look at the first half of it, I think that might be right, to be fair. I don't think I'm going to change too much. Maybe Willison if I don't really feel too confident there. But again, it's a nothing swap. It's just someone else. I might even just try and free up 60K and go down to Henry or, anyone else. So it's irrelevant. But yeah, it's mainly around Tom Turbo because that's sort of where the doors open up for that extra bit of money. Because if it's not Tom Turbo, it's probably Pappenhausen. Um, and you're looking at almost 170 or something like that between the two of them. So it's quite a lot. But I just have to see how much I value having Turbo in because I'm pretty good. I'm pretty keen on Pap too. Just looks so good at the moment. So we'll work it
On
out.
that point you made, I want to ask you a question before I get into my team. Let's use the Willison example because it's up there and everyone can sort of relate to it. I think a lot of people are probably starting to pick him as well with how what we've seen from the trials. First of all, I don't think he'll get the minutes that he got when he was playing in the trials. A lot of that game time was against lesser quality players. Not saying he is not a quality player. I think he is, and he's got a very bright future. My point is for 265K, as you said, there's players out there that can do a job for about 204K. So you save yourself that 60K. And it's probably a difference points wise. Like if you're talking about Liam Henry, for instance, like I reckon that both like Willison would probably get 35 or something at the moment, maybe off the bench with his role. Henry, maybe what, 25? See, we literally just don't know what he's going to get minutes wise either. So it's not really that much. But my point is, if you free yourself up 60K, is it worth getting those bottom dollar players if it frees you up to get another gun fullback, if it frees you up to get that second or that main gun hooker? Like, is that a change that you should be definitely or seriously considering before we start Sunday?
Yeah, that's half the point, man. Last season in my front row forwards, I had Ben Murdoch-Masila from round one, and I found myself in a position that I was not able to change him all year. He never went up. He went down. He might have fluctuated up 30, 40K. It was nothing enough to me to warrant changing him. So I ended up keeping him for the whole season, and I wasn't super happy with it. But he got a chip on in a buy round once or twice when I needed a player to show up, and he got that, that 30 points that you're sort of half expecting. There's not a great deal of upside for that position anyway. And if you're happy to brick that slot, chances are you're not going to play them. Ideally, you want them to raise cash at some point to go up. But if Willison's 60K is going to stop you from getting someone who will actually go up and who is in a better price and you're just off it, obviously it's a smart move to make because that 60K is going to get offset quite quickly by the other guy. And if the other guy is actually going to be a starter and he's going to be making you points, there could be a difference between if I can find extra money going from Brandon Smith up to someone who's going to make me, 60 points consistently. So
Mhm.
um, sometimes, especially at the moment, when you're trying to budget this 11.65 mil around, 60K is a lot.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
60K can go, if I wasn't super keen on Tupanua, which I am, 60K can put him right up around like almost Helam Lukey territory straight away. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And he was in my team, and I did just take him out before. But there's a guy that has a lot of value, and at the moment, looking at someone who's 460K in the second row because there's that many of them, they're going to go up quite a lot more than Willison's going to hold you back for. So
Yeah.
that's sort of half the point that I'm trying to think at the moment. If I can find that extra bit of value, and I really see that value, it's definitely worth it. But yeah, at the moment, the fact that he's not bottom dollar is kind of deterring me from starting with him because I think he's probably going to score what he's priced at the moment. He won't even have that 60 odd K increase that you're not banking on, but it's not a red dot anyway. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, at the moment, man, it's sort of just doing the math. But yeah, I'm not super keen on it at the moment.
No, I understand that. Let's move over to my team, and then we can get into some team lists. Here it is. The first look here for Jesse as well. I was in the car probably half an hour before I uploaded all this, fixing a few things as well. Um, I think I may have maybe one less player than Jesse playing this weekend. I'm not. I think I've just quickly rough it, or maybe actually exactly the same.
About the same thing.
Just a sop hook. Yeah, I think it's the same. So, um, front rowers, I've got 3 out of the 4 playing this weekend, and I'm not too concerned about that because obviously the smaller fields will bring everyone a lot more condensed, and I think that's when the forwards will come into their own. I'm anticipating an increase in base this weekend. Everyone's wanting to be a very fast, expansive game, entertain the Americans. I don't think the coaches give a rat's ass about that. They want the 2 competition points and then get their players the hell out of there before they can get up to too much mischief. So I think there'll be bash and barge, big hits, big tackles, big runs, everything you can think of, and the forwards will all be in that. And maybe a couple little bit of bits and stuff. Who knows? So I've gone Terrell May as my big dog up front. Not worried at all with the fact that he's been named on the bench. We've seen
Yeah,
it before. He can come on. He'll get a job done, and if anything, he could easily still score more than Spencer coming off the bench. So it was a toss up between the two, and I've decided to stay with Terrell May at the moment because I wasn't desperate for the cash either. Like if it becomes a cash move, I would go down to Spencer, but it'd be a pretty hesitant move. Like I do think Terrell May is going to be massive this year, and a lot of people keep talking about Jared Hargraves in the mix with all this. I think they're forgetting how old he is to start with. It's his last year. I think he's going to be more that enforcer type. He'll come off the bench for maybe 20-minute stints or stuff whenever Trent Robinson needs the game sort of changed up the momentum, and he'll just absolutely go out and flog some blokes, come back off and let the young guys take over and maintain it. So I'm not actually anticipating. You're a Roosters man, so you can probably let us in a bit more. I don't think he'll play that much of a role in minutes wise with these guys.
you don't think Uriah Hargrave starts every week?
No, I actually think he comes off the bench.
Wow, I reckon he starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon he starts, and what happens when he comes back is White probably drops out, and then both Lenu and May are off the bench, I would say.
Yeah.
Seems most likely, but it's his last year. Like, why would you just waste his last season on the bench? You know what I mean? Like, at least give him a run. He's
Oh, it
definitely
won't be
good for it.
wasted. He'll still
Yeah.
be playing his 30-minute
How many
roles or
people do
something,
you need
but
to
you
enforce
don't
off the
wanna.
bench though? Because you're gonna have Lenu
Oh,
coming off pretty red hot. You're gonna have May coming off, who's even more of a wrecking ball than Lenu is. And then you're gonna have
true.
Ria Hargraves at the same time. Like, you need someone to start who's gonna be able to provide that, bulldog at least. And I think that's probably Ria Hargraves. He might not play the minutes, but I definitely think he starts. And then the other two just do a shift. But man,
Oh, even so.
the bench is different, so it could be different every week. But I think at the
Yeah.
moment, as far as looking at it, because I don't think Sandon Smith moves out. I wasn't surprised to see him in the 14 at all. Um,
Yeah.
I think White is the one player that drops out from next week onwards
Yeah.
to make way
No,
for Ria
I can
Hargraves.
I understand that one. I'll go on Sean Kepi as my second. I've said for a while now, I don't really want to spend too much money in my prop forwards to start the year when I feel like I can get better value out from some of my like backline players and getting a stronger fullback, etc. So I'm pretty content with that. I was actually quite impressed with Kepi in the trial game. I thought he did a really good job. He was really busy, which I wasn't anticipating. And I like the fact that he's got the starting role. So I anticipate he'll get at least 2 stints in the game. And I think he'll get some pretty good base there. So I'm happy to have those two plugging along. And I'm the same with you, Jesse. I sort of just put Willis in there for now because it's cheapish. It kind of works. I'm the same as you. And I was even thinking about it before we even went on air to change it down to Henry because I anticipate them both to be doing similar types of roles. And if the points difference is like 5 or 10 between the two, I really don't care about it because I don't anticipate playing either of them pretty
Yeah,
much many games, maybe only around like the origin period. So if it means I free a bit more cash up to go bigger somewhere else, then I'll probably do that by the time we get to Sunday. I had a choice between the two edge forwards for the Roosters, and I've gone back to my man. It actually made me so happy when I looked at team lists Tuesday and seen that Sua Wong was named to start it. I straight away said, "Yep, I can go and get him back in my team." Because, guys, honestly, I was sat in my room and on my bed, and the missus going, "What's wrong with you?" And the day I had to get rid of him, I go, "I got rid of one of my men. I got rid of Wong." And she goes, "Oh, here we go. Supercoach talk again for the millionth
yeah,
time. Go to bed." It was a hard day for me. It was almost as tough as the day I had to get rid of Longo from my team. But maybe he's made a comeback. I don't know yet. I can't give that side of it away till next week. But yeah, Wong is just a freak. Like I love what I see from Wong. He's one guy that no matter who's on the bench, I think Trent Robinson now has the faith in him. And it sort of showed to me even more the fact that last weekend's trial, when they had their big guns playing, he hardly played much, which for me meant that he was keeping him sort of fresh for
mm,
this Vegas game and the week. Like he now sees him as a very important figure in this Roosters side. So I just think there's huge upside for Wong this year. And honestly, it would not surprise me if he finishes a year in like the 700,000 bracket or something
yeah,
big. Like he just has that upside about him that I just had to be a part of. Supernova, I have a massive eye on still, so I'm not going to rule out having him as well. The question I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to wait till I could show you my team, is there a world you can have both? Because I actually think both are juicy, juicy prospects because Supernova might make way and only do like a 60-minute stint or something, but I still think the quality he has, he can still make some money, and I actually want to be part of that.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Obviously, like, they're both good value. I think at this point, you sort of got to look at their price tag and how much upside they have. Forget the fact that they're both in the same team, or um,
And the
you don't
fact
want to
there's
be
no
running with.
Crichton, I think helps him even more.
Yeah, well, you got Nat Butcher
Yeah,
on the bench. There's no Egan either, so it's a pretty
front heavy.
thin bench. Yeah, it's very front heavy. Like,
Yeah,
it's not really going to affect these two guys too much, I would think. Besides Nat Butcher, like, he might come on and take 20, 30 off Tupanua himself, but then probably play 50, mixing up with Radley or whatever's going to happen there. So
yeah,
um, I like both of them, to be honest with you, man. There's a world that I have both of them in the team, but I don't know how to do it
yeah,
yet. Whether or not it's not for the long term either. Like, it might just be a quick cash grab, and then you stick with the guy that you see running out a bit longer. And I reckon it's probably Wong. I think you might be right. I think Wong's got the longevity for that position, just in general. But I can do that Willison down to someone and go Tupanua to Wong quite easily too. So like there's very easy ways to get that sort of player in at the moment. Um, but yeah, man, it was good to see Wong in the lineup. 100%. I was got a bit of message
I
straight
was so
away. Wong's
happy.
in, so
I was
yeah,
so, so happy. If I wasn't so busy, I would have probably put a post up and just me celebrating, but I've
yeah,
been flat chat this afternoon. It's been ridiculous. Brendan Piacura, I've had him on, I think I've had him since the start. He's been one of the only players I think in my team that has stayed throughout the duration, no matter what. I've just always had a thing with him. And then from that trial where he scored the 2 tries, line breaks, tackle
yeah.
breaks, everything, mate, I
Good signs.
see again, like that's another guy who I can see at the end of the year in that 650 to 700,000 price mark, and probably ride him the whole year. To be honest, unless someone really comes out of the woodwork, I can sort of see myself riding both of those guys. I've got showing pretty much the whole year. Like obviously, you got to look at the likes of like Cam Murray that down the track and David Fifita when he comes back fit, but one of them could probably easily play on the bench once we get into that sort of territory where you're having those big sort of players on the bench and just go from that. So my
Yep.
wings and pretty much the rest of it's covered up. I've got my 2 of my
Mhm.
wings and centers, as well. I've moved Burbo from my interchange to my actual starting side at the moment. The reason I've done that because the guy I've interchanged him with, I anticipate Burbo actually scoring more on the weekend than he will. So I've moved him in for now. I don't want to waste a reserve. I was thinking about it. I actually don't really want to waste a reserve spot this weekend because I'm worried about, as we've spoken about at the start of this podcast, lineups and getting one wrong or getting a cheapie wrong or something. So at least frees me up 4 spots on my bench to make sure I have scoring players and I don't screw myself right over. So I've decided I want to leave that. And if it means I have one less center wing scoring, then I'll risk that because the guy I've swapped him with, I've actually gone very, very cold on, but that's another story. And then Gagai for South Sydney. He's on the wing now.
Yeah.
He's bottom dollar. We were chatting about it. I reckon he has at least 3 weeks in him until Whiten gets back. He has 3 weeks to prove he deserves to keep that spot. If he does, then he has probably another 4 or 5 weeks after that until Munro comes back. I think Munro was, what was it, like 8 weeks or something
8
with
weeks.
initially
Broken
with Munro.
collarbone.
So he's got that. So I'm happy with that for now because we all know what happens on the Rabbitohs edges, mainly Johnston's one, but the other side can often get a few tries in. So I want to be all part of a cheapy Rabbitohs backline option. That looks very appealing to me, especially at bottom dollar with minimal risk when there's a few of the other cheapies, like a lot of those Raiders players we anticipate to get some game time throughout the season, maybe not at the start, but as the season goes on. And I mean, I'm hoping by then it's just sort of a straight swap from Gagai to over to one of those sort of real cheap guys. So that's
Mm.
it for mine, Jesse. We've got a few similar players, a couple of different options, but
Yeah.
the ones that you haven't chosen, like Gagai, what's your thoughts on him?
I don't know about Gagai yet, man. I'm tempted because of his price. He's so cheap, it helps out a bit. But again, like I'll be swapping him with someone who's 239. Like it's much of a muchness, really. I just don't want to get stuck with him.
35K.
Yeah, well, it can mean a
You
lot, but I
can have 95K once you do Willison, and then you can go your that's almost 100K. There you go. You're
all right,
cooking
look at
now.
that. I'm straight cooking with gas. I just don't know what's going to happen. Like if he's that guy that okay, he's in there for at least 3 weeks. You hope, that would be ideal. He might get a bit of a price rise. Hopefully, it's substantial enough anyway to get off him. If he can keep a spot until Munro's back, then it could definitely be worth it. But then I suppose you're in the risk of like at the moment, if he doesn't, and you get him in there and he doesn't get a price rise or he loses that spot, there is no way off that, man. There's no way to get away from him. You're gonna have him forever. So he might just be that red dot that you used to loop with. Not the worst
I've
thing in the
never done
world.
that yet, so
No,
we'll
well,
see this year if I break my
yeah,
loop trend. I'm a
you're done.
proud non-looper, but I might get my hands tied if me and Jesse are going close and it's getting towards the end. You never know. I might have
Filthy.
to pull the loop out and
Nah, that's dirty.
do a trick,
Um,
see what
I
happens.
do
But
like I do like that you've got Ben Turbo starting too. Um,
yeah,
I think it's a valid starting pick, to be fair, the fact that he's on there. No reason to waste that reserve chip too, depending how your team lines up. You don't wanna lock someone out. if
Yeah,
you want to swap
exactly.
them. So yeah, it's a good move. I don't hate it at all. What else have you
Do you
got?
agree with
Tell
that
me.
point with the reserves? Like, you do not put a reserve on this weekend. You're either confident in them and you play them, or don't bother.
Yeah, it just I suppose it depends on the player you're putting the reserve on. Really, it's all situational, but you just have to
Yeah, I
be
guess like
certain. You just got to be certain. If you're sure that the guys you're playing are going to be the dudes that you want with a chip on, then just do it. Like I don't see the harm there. But don't lock yourself out. If you're trying to avoid it. So don't overthink that one. It's a bit of a nothing issue, really. Um,
I've
I
already
do like
overthought it.
Terrell May. Yeah, I know. I can tell. May, he definitely outscores Lenu even off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast. He'll have some sort of hopefully he gets close to 40 minutes at least. That way he scores 50 points. Would be good. And Sean Kepi, I like his price and the fact that he's dual position too, and he's
Mhm.
starting. So yeah, it's very hard to go against that one. I had my eye on him too, actually, when I did see him in the starting lineup. But again, I don't know who I want to take out for him because he's cheaper than who I've got at the moment starting, but he's just that little bit too dear for anyone else to go uprated. So I don't know yet. Could just watch from afar. He's traditionally hasn't been super relevant anyway. Um, but there's very little risk at his price that he goes down. I think he might just, at the very least, hold it. So, um, yeah, there's just I just feel like there's a bit more upside outside of that, but the jewel is handy. We've got everyone else the same, besides the ones
Yep.
Wong, who's a weapon. So,
Well,
yeah,
that's part one of our team reveal so far. As I said, there probably may change by the weekend. I'll let everyone know how that does change if it does. But that is it for now. Again, as I said, it's a bit of a tease because we've got all these teams waiting to play next week, and this is sort of the entree to a main meal that we can't wait to devour. So let's get into the team list side of things. And first up, I want to go through the Manly Seagulls. So I'm just going to quickly roll through the lineup, Jesse. While I'm doing that,
yep,
just if you can bring up the Supercoach side of things and get the
yep,
Manly lineup ready. So fullback Turbo on the wings, you got Jason Saab and Jackson Paulo won that wing spot. Cooler, and that means Garrick is to the centers. We will chat about Garrick in a minute because I'm a bit worried about him at the price playing center. Luke Brooks and Daly Cherry Evans in the halves. You got Paseka, Alaye, and Lachlan Croker in the front row. Ola Kawatu, Ben Trebojevic, and Jake Trebojevic in the back row. Carl Lawton, Corey Waddell, Ethan Bullymore, and Nathan Brown. The key players that sort of missed out, the only real one that people were talking about at the time were Tommy Talau. He's on the extended bench
yep.
because I think more so for his price. So he is not an option at the moment. If you've got him, definitely swap him for someone who will be playing. I advise everyone that make sure every single player from this week is playing. You want to at least try and get some kind of cash generation happening from the start. Is that right, Jesse? Is that good advice?
Yeah, kind of. Like
Yeah.
you don't want someone who's on the reserves. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to even be named
No.
when they are playing. If you're going to have a few
Ideally, you
Tigers
want 1 to
players.
17.
Yeah, and exactly. If you're going to run with a couple of buys, it's obviously the Tigers. A lot of people are warranting those Tigers buys anyway. At least they're going to, at least they're going to be named. You hope. You got to sort
Yeah.
of run the risk there. But if they're definite certainties like Coruscant, Bateman, Papali, those kind of guys, it's 1 week. It's not going to kill you. But if these
Yeah.
guys are playing, and then the player that you've got in your team isn't even named to start in the 17, then you don't want that. You know,
No.
it's not a good sign. So if you had Talau or even Brad Parker too, I know looked like he was on the edge for a bit. I'm not doing that. It's not worth the risk. You'll die with him. So
So the Manly lineup, anyone that stands out to you either for a good or a not so good reason?
I see Jackson Paulo starts. He's a bit too expensive at the moment. I just want to see what happens there.
Yeah.
Obviously everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Ruben Garrick in the centers. What else have we got? Paseka, Loea, Olakwatu. Ben Turbo's the biggest one, really, as far as relevancy goes. Obviously, you got Tommy, who's the gun. But for
Yeah.
the price, man, Ben Trebojevic, and just looking at that too, he's 45% owned now. Um,
Wow.
a week ago, he was in the teens, so it's a huge
Oh,
jump. It's a huge jump. So I think everyone now that they've seen that and his price and his name, I reckon that goes up even closer to the day now. I reckon that pushes 50. Could be the highest owned player in the game.
It would not surprise me at all. So,
Yep.
what about Ruben Garrick? What's his ownership like at the moment? And
Um,
me, I'm
10%.
literally just I'm avoiding at the moment because I think
Yeah.
him in the centers it's too much of an unknown, and for his price that he's priced at, you really want those winger numbers, and I'm just naturally, like we've always seen wingers that go to centers take some time to adapt to the style and the fact that they're not so involved, running out of your own end, etc. Some of them get lost at times, and I don't know if that will be Garrick. I definitely rate him as a really quality player, but just for mine,
Yep.
I can't entertain that price.
Well, you got to consider his price. He's based around a 70 or so average. He hasn't dipped below that for years. Last year he averaged 70.8. The season was 70.6, albeit he's on the wing. I think the
Or
thing that's going to
fullback.
hold you to, yeah, or fullback, exactly. A lot of it was fullback too. Um, a fit Turbo is really going to boost Garrick's scores quite a lot because the season that Turbo went ballistic and averaged 140 something, Garrick was the second highest scoring average at 87.5, and a lot of that had to do with kicking. So he's still going to do that. And if Turbo fires as well as he does, Garrick's still going to get in the points anyway. So obviously, he might take a dip being in the centers, but I don't think it's going to really dip below what he can do normally because he'll make that difference up by kicking or, he's not going to go missing in the centers. It'll just be a bit different of a game for him. So it might start slow. He had that game in the centers last year, man, where he scored what 3 tries and 140 something points. Let me have a quick look because that was the center game and he only played about two by then as well. So yeah, he scored 169 points.
Whoa,
Yeah, it was insane, man.
juicy.
It was a huge score. So you can obviously do it. Like Garrick's a weapon. His 10% ownership is fair, but it's a lot of money to spend at the moment for
Yeah,
all of those reasons too. Considering you've got Val Holmes right next to him, who's a bit more locked in, both kicking. So, and he's a bit of a specialist center as well. So, um, someone who's been in that position for a long time of his career and kicks to someone who's just moving there, you can make the argument to go against it. Obviously, the game after that, 169, he scored 26 points in center.
yeah.
So yeah, it's not all rainbows for him, but the upside might be there, but still, it's a bit too much for me, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
I do like having Garrick in my team. I did have him last year for a while until he got injured, but he wasn't that dear when I got him, so might be one of
Yeah.
those situations again. He might dip too.
One
If
thing
if Garrick dips from this position, something happens to Turbo, fuck, you're straight onto him every week. So yeah,
I reckon that there's another way that he comes back into calculation. If Jackson Parlow, which let's be honest, hasn't set the world on fire with his NRL career so far, as has struggled the last year or two. If he can't fire and Siebes sees that he doesn't like it, there's always a chance that Tommy Slough comes into this side at centre and Gary goes back to the wing as well. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. And if that does happen and his price is a bit lower, definitely very, very interested then in the Ruben Garrick train and probably be jumping on depending on the time of year and the price if I can make it work. So there's a
yeah,
few options there to really pique the interest of Ruben Garrick. We'll just have to keep an eye on it throughout the season and see how things are going. Tommy scares the absolute shit out of me not owning. I am extremely worried that I do not have Tom Troyevich in my side, and the fact that you do does my head in. There will be a friendly rivalry all year. We will continue to talk about it on every episode, update everyone on where things are at. But yeah, it does scare the shit out of me.
yeah,
What's he owned at the moment? Is it over 10% yet? Because I
yep.
feel like more and more people are starting to warm up to him.
It's 16%. As far as it goes for fullbacks that are actually, priced up, not just bottom dollar cashies, um, it goes Kalen Ponga at 33%, Ryan Papenhuyzen 22%, and then Tommy Turbo at 16. So he's beaten out Walsh, Latrell Mitchell, who's a bit cheaper as well. Scott Drinkwater, Tedesco, Edwards, da da da, Gutherson as well. So um,
Wow.
obviously, his upside. There's no one better than Tommy T, man, on his day. It's just his injury risk is going to keep that percentage lower because if he hadn't, as well, I suppose if he hadn't had the injuries, he'd obviously be the highest scoring player in the game every year, and he'll be priced accordingly, which would probably deter more people. But I don't think it really has. It's quite high ownership, to be fair, considering because obviously I've got Ponga and Turbo, and I don't think I'm the only one that in that 15 odd percent that's done it. I
No,
reckon a lot of
I
people are
think there's
doing
a
that
fair
little
few.
pair up. That handcuff's really nice to look at. So um, it's yeah, you take the risk and you just trade him if it doesn't work. It's like their points are there. So yeah,
I agree.
I
Um,
yeah,
I think that's pretty much it for the Manly side.
yep,
Not that we haven't already spoken about everyone already as well. So there was, as you said, there was no real shocks when it came to Manly. So I feel like we could prepare a lot better when it came to that Manly side.
yep.
The next one up, the Brisbane the Rabbitohs. So just do the old switcheroo for me, please, and bring up the South Sydney stats for Supercoach. I'll give you the lineup. Latrell at fullback. The back line has been depleted. Alex Johnston and Jacob Gagai on the wings. Isaiah Tass and Richie Kenner in the centres. Now, the fact that they've been depleted, that's still a decent back line. So
Mm,
the world isn't all doom and gloom how it felt when all those injuries and suspensions did come out, but it is obviously not ideal. Cody Walker, Lachlan Ilias in the halves. There's your best mate, Jesse. Tavita Totola, Damien Cook, and Sean Kepi starting front row, as I've already spoken about. Kaloa Matangi, Jai Arrow gets that starting spot, when I go into the bench, you're going to be shocked at the player that misses out. Cameron Murray at lock, and on the bench you got Saliva Halvili, Jacob Host, Davey Mawali, and Tom Burgess. That's right, guys. Talis Duncan. There was so much talk about him in the preseason, the off season, training so well. There was literally times there where I was hearing he was pretty much penned in for at the edge spot. I think the injuries and stuff happened and have changed their attack on that. But he's named at 18th man, guys. So he can have a part in the game. Obviously, if there's a professional foul or something and a player's taken out, he can come on and all the HIAs, etc. But I'm shocked with the talk that was coming out of the South Sydney camp about him. The fact he's not even on the bench,
mm,
that's
yeah,
that's a head scratcher. I'd
yeah.
like
I
to
don't know
see
how
what's his
long
ownership still.
Talis Duncan's ownership is.
I actually reckon it'd still be decent.
Yeah, I think it actually probably would be. Where is he? He's 11% owned still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gone down. It'll go down further. He's as owned as Cameron Murray is.
Wow.
Yeah, 11% still quite a
It's
bit.
such a shame because he has such a good Supercoach game as well. It's so
Yeah,
juicy. Just need
we
him
might
in
see
there.
him. We might see him. It just depends, dude.
You
I
can't
I didn't
start with
think
him.
Arrow was gonna lose that spot, but you wouldn't start with him. No, I think it's something you just keep an eye on, and if he does get named, you just have a look what your team looks like at the time, and if you can make a swap, or if, it might even force your hand to do a change, um, cash out of someone, increase somewhere else, and get him in. That's what I'd
Yeah.
probably look to do if you come into the position. But again, like you just want to hope that he can actually string a few games together or at least keep a spot. So it might just be worth keeping an eye on him, but don't start with him. That's my advice.
I'd probably look at maybe those two English imports, Pierce Paul or Smithies are around the same sort of price. So
Yep,
it's not really much money to lose or gain at all. So probably
yep,
look at one of those two to just trade out. At least you know, or it sounds like, okay, we can't say anything now because it also sounded like Talis Duncan was at least going to be on the bench. It sounds like either of those two will be playing a role come round one. Um, we've already pretty much spoken about the other guys that were of appeal when it came to Supercoach. As I said, like Sean Kepi, I do have him. You've got Totola. Um, that's about it. Isaiah
yep.
Tars's stocks have definitely increased. I feel like ever since the Campbell Graham injury. I don't know if he's a starting player, but he'll definitely. I think maybe once they start to become a bit more red hot, we know they love to go that side in attack, and if he can start to benefit that a little bit, then he might become an option. But maybe just someone to keep an eye on there. I'm just trying to think
Yeah.
outside the box a little bit and give
He's
someone something that they haven't heard of.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't really look at Tass, to be fair, man. I just don't see too
Yeah,
much upside out of him, and he's already priced so high too. He's 577.
yeah,
Um, Looking at his scores, he had a fair few good ones too. There was quite a few 60s pluses and a lot of 30s in there. His highest score of the year was 119. Backed it up with a 92 and a 68. So,
wow,
yeah, it was pretty good run. And then he missed a game, scored 29, missed a game, scored 40, missed a game, scored 66. They could have been through the bye rounds. So,
yeah,
kind of dropped off a bit from there. Came back with a 99 too. So, the games are there. Obviously, when the Rabbits are flying, you expect him to be part of it, but it just depends on what side he would have been on. That could have been left
yeah.
center stuff, which he's not going to keep. So,
No, he's not.
yeah,
Um, Jai Arrow, what's his ownership percentage at the moment? Because that is one player I am extremely keen to keep my eye on very closely as we get into this round one fixture.
7% owned. Obviously split between front row and second row. I reckon I see his value in the
What's he,
front row.
500?
He's
500 odd?
466.
Oh,
466. So he's not far off one player that I've got who was blurred out in my front row, but it would mean doubling up on
yeah,
rabbits. And I'm fine with a double up on players if there's upside and value in them. I don't see major upside and value out of having a pair of rabbits front row forwards, or
yeah,
he could be good if he gets 80 minutes, but I just don't see that happening. And I reckon he rotates his role through the middle as well, um, which is kind of what he's done for a while. But when you look at the bench build up, there's not a lot there to do that with. You got Tom Burgess, Mawali, they're going to play through the middle. Jacob Host might eat into some of his minutes, but I don't really see a great deal of it. And then Havili might sort of get through that hooker spot. Maybe, give Murray a rest for a minute. So
yeah.
um, that's where, if you saw Tallis Duncan on there, you half expect Arrow to sort of play 50, 60 minutes, but I reckon he's got a good
Mm.
shout to play a fair few.
Me too. That's why I'm sort of getting more and more keen on him. That's pretty much my exact thought after being disappointed that Taylor Duncan wasn't in the team. I straight away went, Jai Arrow is very, very appealing. And for someone who has him in a draft league, and I forget which one it is because I'm in three and some are taking forever to finish, but we won't go there. Um, I've sort of, yeah, I'm actually very happy as a Jai Arrow owner in draft. I really think he has some decent points coming. Let's go the game which I think is already a blockbuster.
Yep.
Two sides who'll be right amongst it for mine come the end of the year. I'd go this far and say I would not be surprised if this is the grand final for
I was
2024. That's what I
just
sort of
about to say that. Hey, I was like, we could be seeing a
that's
grand final up front right now. So
yeah. So well done, Americans. Make
hot
sure you get
take.
out there and watch the possible 2024 grand final. The Roosters first. So you know what to do now, Jesse. Your team,
Yep.
don't get too excited. Don't cream your pants too much.
Too
James
late.
Tedesco, fullback. He has won the race to the fullback spot. Shock and horror.
Oh my God.
Daniel Tupou and Su'ali'i on the wings. Billy Smith and Joey Manu in the centers. That's we'll go back to that actually because I've got an interesting take on that. Luke Keary, Sam Walker in the halves. Well, it's Walker season, baby. I'm telling you, it's
Yep.
2024, the year of the Walker. Spencer Lenu gets his starting spot. Brandon Smith and Lindsay Collins, the absolute freak. Sua Wong, Satili Tupanua, I've already spoken about, and Victor Radley. And then on the bench, Sandon Smith beats out Connor Watson for that 14 role. White, Nat Butcher, and Terrell May as well. So another player that was a couple of players that were interesting to miss out, Angus Crichton and Egan Butcher. So that was some interesting departures from the 1 to 17. But again, we already have spoken about this multiple times with the quality that they've got in this squad at the moment. There's always going to be a couple of big names that missed out.
Yep.
I want to first of all, I'm going to go back up to the top. I want to talk about Su'ali'i because I think this spells the fact to me he's actually when we speak about the five players going into four in the back line, I think he's the fifth member.
Yeah.
when I look at this, because I think Billy Smith and Manu now are the center pairing. I think that's the one that they'll stick with for duration of this year. It's now a battle between Daniel Tupou and Suaalii. I think the club will be very loyal to Daniel Tupou.
Yep.
I think it's his last year at the club, isn't he, Daniel Tupou?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I think it is. The Suaalii is on the way out as well, but as soon as Dom Young comes back, he will have a wing spot. And it seems to me Suaalii is keeping that jersey warm for him. I'm not a fan, but that's sort of where I'm looking at it from a Roosters
Mm.
sort of point of
I
view,
reckon
from an
that's the case.
outsider's point. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the case. If they'd intended Billy Smith to sit out when Dom Young gets back, there's not real much of a reason to have the positions the way they are at the moment. So um, I would like to see, obviously, Dom Young. They need to work out what their lineup's going to look like for the future too, because they're going to lose
Mm.
Tupou and Suwali next year.
Maybe
They
Manu.
do, yeah, potentially Manu as well. So it's going to be a new look back line, and they don't really have the coverage yet for it. There is a couple of these
Uncle
young
Nick will
guys
sort
that
that
they've
out.
got. Yeah, there's a few Murphys there, and yeah, there's a couple that could come into it. Alex Young. It's just whether or not they want to run with a bit of pedigree or not. It's just going to depend. But Dom Young walks into that team, I think, and I reckon it's Suwali that's the guy that drops out because yeah, Billy Smith is the future,
Yeah,
and if he can stay
I
fit,
agree.
man. Yeah, I missed out on him by one pick in two different drafts. Gutted me.
Well, I got Billy Smith very late in one of the drafts. I don't think it was our one. I think it was another one, and I was
Yeah,
wrapped with that because I kept thinking about. I thought, you know what? I actually think he'll play that center position throughout the year. And
yeah,
I remember him last year. He had a few hot games, so I actually don't mind having him as my last pick. I forget which draft it was. I can't do a shout out for it, but I just remember having him on my last pick. I think it was, or maybe second last, and I was cheering. I thought, how
that's
good is
late.
this? So
Yeah, I missed him. He was going to fall to me. I had the pick ready to go. And in 2 drafts in the exact same spot, I missed him. I was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's gutting, but yeah, I do like Billy Smith. I hope he stays in that spot. So I just hope he stays fit
yeah.
too. That's his thing. Um,
Yeah, good news for you as a Brandon Smith owner. I think the fact that Sandon Smith is on the bench, I think Connor Watson would have eaten more into
yeah,
Brandon Smith's minutes than Sandon will. So I think that's
probably.
perfect for the fellow Brandon Smith owners. Who knows? I might go back and become one. I don't know what's happening yet with that by the end of the weekend, but
Mm,
um, at the moment, I definitely, if I was you, I'd be cheering about the fact that it's Connor Watson that makes way.
yeah. Yeah, it's just more minutes for him. Hopefully, I still reckon Smith gets that spot at some point, but I reckon Brandon Smith is probably good for 65. Sort of what you half expect out of him, but yeah, potentially more. You never know what happens in that team. Something happens, someone gets injured. Smith has to. He's a good utility too. I reckon that's the reason they've put him there over Connor Watson. I think he's just got a bit more flexibility about him, considering everyone else is a forward. Um, yeah, Smith was a great player for them last season, and I reckon that's why Robertson's repaid the faith to him. Um, would have been rude to see him out, but yeah, it just spells good stuff for Brandon Smith. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty much we've covered the rest in our team um, reveal. Anyone you wanted to mention, or
Not
as the
particularly,
Rooster
no.
supporter?
I wouldn't be too surprised to see a very late swap for Lenu to the bench for May as well. I reckon when
I'm
they're
for
running
that.
out. Yeah, I reckon when they run out, there's a good chance that we see May actually get the start, and Lenu just go back to the bench. But just something
Give
to
me two
fish for.
Terrell May
Yeah,
stints. I would be creaming myself for that one. I will literally grow by the inch if
yeah,
that happens. Um, that's it for the Sydney Roosters. Over to the Brisbane Broncos now, and Reece Walsh fullback, Jesse Arthurs, and Dean Mariner is on the wings. So see you later, Corey Oates.
that's a big one.
I've been sold a huge dummy there and screwed my draft straight up, and that was my league of interest draft. I was thought I'd sneak one through the keeper there, but absolutely rorted. Katoni Staggs, Selwyn Cobbo in the centers. Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds, the halves. Corey Jensen gets that starting spot. Billy Walters and Payne Haas. As we said, Brendan Pecora has been named from that knee injury and has basically been confirmed that he will definitely play. Jordan Ricky and Pat Carrigan. Tyson Smithy on the bench with Fletcher Baker, Kobe Hetherington, and Xavier Willison. So, as we mentioned, Corey Oates on the extended bench, 18th man. Tristan Saylor, after a huge preseason, wasn't able to find his way into this side. And when you look at it on
Yeah,
paper, that's
it's
fair
always
enough.
gonna be hard. Yeah, exactly.
Martin Tapau's been pushed out by the two younger players in Fletcher Baker and Xavier Willison for mine. And yeah, that's about it there. I thought Jaden Hunt, who came over from the Dragons, was pretty good in the offseason as well. So that's some
Mm,
good depth there that the Broncos have got. First of all,
plenty.
Dean Mariner, super coach point of view, I think he's a bit too expensive for my liking to start with him. I'll definitely be watching him, and the fact that he's wing, I've really liked what I've seen from him. He played all three trials because he was one of those players. Actually, wait, did he? He
No,
played on the weekend, didn't he?
I think yes, but I don't think he played
He
all
did, and
3.
then they must have flown him over late. So
Mm.
who knows? He
It
might
was
be jet lagged,
surprising.
guys. Avoid him at all cost.
Yeah, it was very surprising to see him in the team. Again, like, he's priced at 569 and 700. He
So
averaged
much.
almost 70 points in those 4 games last year. So you could say that he's underpriced. But a lot of it was obviously very, very attacking. Like, it was massive try
Mm,
scorers. Um, I'll bring up his stats in a second, but just trying to find it. But yeah, no, that's again, you're taking the gamble that obviously Oates isn't going to get the spot at some point. It was a 58, a 61, a 28, which was just no attacking upside, and then 132. Now, without that 132, he might actually be priced okay, but
yeah,
obviously you can see that he can do it. So it's not too bad, but I think for a draft perspective, he's a great pickup. If he's still sitting on the waivers in any of your leagues, he was in one of my leagues today, and I looked at him. I didn't make the swap, but someone did, so he's not there anymore. But yeah, like, if he
straight
can hold
into it.
that spot out, yeah, exactly. Saw the lineup and snatched him up. So if he can hold that spot, I do think there is value for him. Um, but again, like, it's a lot to take the punt on at 570 to begin with. Like, considering, there's other players like Tuivasa Sheck who brained it in the trials for cheaper, um, with obviously a much more certain position. So without the attacking upside, I reckon he probably goes down. And, naturally, he's not going to base 57 average. So, but he plays for the Broncos, man. Like, they could turn it on.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with him getting picked. As I said, I was seriously impressed with him over the last
yeah,
few weeks in the trial games. So credit to him, and he's always had that rap about him. There was pretty much talk from last year he would be that man that would get that job, and it ended up
yeah.
it ended up being the case, which I think is a credit to his trial form. Which it's good to see those young guns take it seriously, and this is what can benefit from it. Um, the rest of this side, we've basically covered it in our team reveal. Really,
Yeah,
the side, the rest of it, I think Fletcher Baker, quickly touch on him. I don't know what his ownership's like at the moment. I'm guessing it's
I'll
cooled
tell
a
you.
lot. I'd say it's probably around the
Um,
5-6%.
it's 3%.
Yeah, it's definitely
Colorado.
it's cooled so much.
Yeah,
I remember right at the start that would have been up towards the 15% or something. Everyone was high on him, but I think
yeah.
everyone's found out he's just not going to score what
No,
you're thinking of.
not really. No, and I remember seeing him too when they were paired up together. It was actually between Baker and Lenu because they were such similar pricing. Perspective, Spencer Lenu's still 22% owned. So without it really even seeing anything of him, people are just so off Fletcher Baker at the moment. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely better options.
yeah, I agree. Anything else you want to touch on when it comes to the Brisbane Broncos?
Uh, no, not particularly, man. It was pretty predictable, this lineup. It was just good to see, obviously, Pete Cora get through that injury.
Yeah,
Corey Jensen nails the spot down. I think that was as to everyone's expectations. He's 1% owned too at 413K. So I don't think there's much upside to him. Not really too much of an option there, but definite starter at least. But yeah, no, the
yeah.
team as is expected, man. Um, pretty much it. Yeah, not too surprising.
No, it's going to be interesting just to see how much minutes Xavier Willison ends up
Yeah,
playing as well, because I think depending on the game, Corey Jenston And I think it'll be a battle between those two. I think it would just see how they're going, if they want that extra punch when it comes to Wilson and what he can do, or if they just want that steadying hand in Jensen to do what we know he can do as well. So interesting to say the least, because we all know Payne Haas is probably going to give you 60 minutes or something for the Broncos week in, week out. So that's
Yeah,
probably where the 20 minutes for Fletcher Baker comes into it, and that's all he'll get
pretty
pretty much
much, yeah.
weekly.
I think Jensen will just be that guy that'll just do the safe work and just kinda let Haas and Carrigan get away with everything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you'll get
And
a
don't
lot of
forget
that
there was
minute
talk that
rotation.
Carrigan was going to get into that prop rotation at some point, but I think that with the
Yeah,
way that they've named this squad, I think that's been squashed. I think he'll
yeah,
just stay as a lock.
yeah. I don't think it was very smart to change him out of that position anyway, considering how good he is at
No.
it. But it's just another prop really, so, yeah, the whole talk was about Hetherington, but obviously, he's no Carrigan. So, yeah, just let Jensen share minutes with the other couple and let Haas and Carrigan do all the hard work. I think that's probably much the
Yeah,
game plan for the Broncos. It always has been.
mate, I agree. And pretty much, I think on that note, well, I think we can give ourselves an early mark tonight because we
Sure
have a
one.
massive episode coming up next week. We are already mentally preparing ourselves for that one with a huge team list Tuesday. So that will be a big one.
Yeah.
So what do you say? Do you think we give ourselves an early mark?
Yeah, be nice actually. I think my wife's still awake, so that'll be a
Oh, well,
first.
look out. She won't she won't know what's hit her. She'll go,
No,
"What's that
exactly.
on the other side of the bed?"
Yeah,
And it's actually, we're not gonna go there. Anyway, it is great to have you all. It's, as I said, it's sort of a bit of a tease. It has been a bit annoying just having the 2 games, but we've got to play around with something. Good luck if you are still doing drafts or about your drafts about to come up. We have done ours. There is a video on the way with that, and to let everyone know the teams, etc. Deep dive into my team, Jesse's team as well, and we're just got to work out a time. Obviously, with things happening at the moment, it's pretty crazy in the NRL world. But we will
yeah,
definitely get something out. We'll have a chat about that. And I'm probably hoping in the next probably week while it's still fresh to get something out there for you guys. But thank you once again, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, please make sure you do like and subscribe. It goes a long way to help supporting our page. We're on that race to 1K. Do not forget about that. So help us reach that target. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Please continue to be around the post as well. As I said, we'll get some more Supercoach stuff out there this week. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.